This episode is brought to you by Ariston Specialties in Bloomfield, Connecticut, makers of amazing olive oils and other Greek delights. Check them out online at aristonspecialties.com. That's Ariston, Ariston, specialties.com. This is the all-new Faith Middleton Food Schmooze podcast. Just look for the words all new to find us, find all of our new shows. This time, we remember the fork going into our mouths and the taste of something unforgettable. Because taste, unlike color is not memorable. You can't see a shade of aqua and say to yourself, I'm just going to remember that. I'll memorize that, because the brain doesn't do that with color, but it does it with taste. I spent a lot of today researching how the brain works with taste. So, all right, here's a gang that I adore. We've got Chris Prosperi of Metro Beast Restaurant in Simsbury, Connecticut, associate producer Joanne Church in New London, Carl Franklin, our editor and associate producer, and Mark Raymond will be back with us, but he is going to contribute to the show. Carl's got a written statement of it because he wanted to participate. And then, of course, my Corgi Mix Bonbon is at my feet and, curled up in his bed. And so, what about this? Don't we all, remember that first unforgettable taste of something? It could be a sauce, a candy, a cupcake, a Dairy Queen, a donut, whatever it might be, you name it. Like, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, I have a few. The one that always comes to my mind, though, it was the first time I went to this restaurant in California called the French Laundry. And it was an amazing meal, as it always is, but there was one dish, and it was celery three ways. And it was lightly sautéed little sticks of celery. And then he put some celery microgreens on top, and then he sprinkled celery seeds over that, and then they shaved fresh truffles over the top of it. I don't know why. It is one of like 4 dishes I've had in my life that I can still taste today. And I think I was wondering about this too, about like, why is it there are certain things that really pop in your head or stick in your head? Because I went back there and I had that same dish a second time, and it wasn't what I remember. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe Thomas Keller made it the first time and not the second time.
Or his assistant. Maybe his assistant made it. Yeah.
No, I've had this experience a few times. Sometimes it's the dish, but it's also the person you're dining with, the mood you go into the meal with. I mean, of course, I was on vacation. We had gone for a beautiful walk in the afternoon, and the mustard was there. There was the spring, so the mustard was blooming all over, and it just, the sense of place and ambiance, and put it together with that dish. It was just a magic moment that's, like Faith said, etched in my mind forever.
Do you find that you can call it back? Can you remember?
Oh,
Isn't that amazing?
Every bite, like like I just had it 10 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago.
I know. Okay. Who's up? Carl, what about you?
Sure. So, I think I even mentioned this on a previous show. If somebody asked me, what's the best bite you've ever had, the most memorable thing. And, sometimes I remember once it was like a Wendy's Big Bacon Classic or something. It was probably just my level of hunger, my metabolic rate or whatever it was, my taste buds. But, and then I go back there a second time and it's not the same. But here it is. Here's my favorite bite. I was at a Microsoft conference in Barcelona.
Yes.
Where my youngest, Clara, is now, by the way. She's studying abroad for 90 days. And this Barcelona, first of all, is where I discovered Jamón Ibérico.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It's the most delicious prosciutto-like cured ham you've ever eaten.
Ever.
But that wasn't the best bite. It was the same trip, but it was after that. We went to this speaker party, I think it was. and the person coming around with hors d'oeuvres, and it was a toothpick hors d'oeuvre, right? So on top was a perfect cube of the freshest tuna belly you've ever had. On the bottom, the most ripe cantaloupe, together with olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I just picked it up, put it in my mouth, and I was like, oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever had in my life.
Doesn't that sound like, the famous Spanish chef, Ferran Adrià? That would be something that he would do, although maybe they do that in Spain as a tapas thing all the time. I don't know. But that is something that Ferran Adrià would do. He'd combine those.
I tried to recreate
flavors.
it. When we
You
came
did?
home, I had a sort of tapas dinner, and I invited some friends. And I got what I thought was the best tuna that I could and the ripest melon that I could, but it wasn't as good. It just wasn't memorable like that. Maybe it was the combination of the ingredients, and then we're on the Mediterranean, and it's like magic hour and the sun is like perfect. I don't know what it was, but it was just.
Okay, can I take a stab at what it might have been?
Sure.
The melon, because the fruit, I've brought back seeds from actual plants in Italy, and I've planted them in my yard thinking, okay, I'm going to get the real Italian flavors now, because these are the seeds I picked them in Italy. No, I bet it was the melon. Had something, because of that sun and that
the Italian
air.
sweat in the soil.
Okay, Joanne, what's your favorite bite?
Faith, as you know, I grew up, my mom was a great cook and a fabulous baker. So I've got so many fabulous first bites. But when you said memory, and I had to go back and think of a positive first bite, 50 years ago, I took my first plane trip from New York to Dallas, and they served a hot meal. And it was Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes, corn, and like apple crisp.
On the flight?
On the flight.
That's what I was going to say. On a plane.
It was one of the best meals. I was blown away. Blown away by this food. Now, 'cause it melted in my mouth, this steak, and just that it was hot. Like how, I'm sure I knew like how they did it. We didn't have TV dinners in our house, but I watched TV. I knew they were there. So I was trying to look for menus. I mean, I wasn't first class, so there was no menu. So I probably, it's either this or this. But a year later, after my first trip, Swanson's created the first Hungry Man TV dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And guess what one of the first
Salisbury steak.
So I thought, wait, were they using us? No, but also the ambiance. It's my first time in an airplane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and warm food. But then I thought, well, it must have been a winner because now they're up in the game. Now they're making it twice as big. And
But did you try the Salisbury Hungry Man steak to see if it was comparable?
I didn't really. No, how would I? No, because I didn't know back then.
Yeah.
Right? I was just trying to figure out today, and I happened to see it, and I thought, that's hysterical.
Yes. Wow. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with more of the all-new Food Schmooze Party. Don't forget to look for the words all new, and we'll be right back. So we're doing best bites, that time when you had a bite of something and you just went kind of nuts and said, I guess we're not doing the bad experiences with that first bite.
Oh, I've
That's
got
next.
good ones.
We've all got one. Okay.
Food trauma.
How much time do you have?
So let me see. Well, I'll just put in this one sentence. I went to see a friend in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we were going all around the college area, and she said, come on, let's go into this Burmese restaurant. My husband and I have come here all the time. And it was as if with my first bite, honestly, I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating, you had taken a match and put it on my tongue.
Wow.
That's how painful it was. And I was so embarrassed to say, I can't eat this food. It was just so,
Wow.
I tried some more. It was the scariest bite of food I've ever had in my entire
Wow.
life. So there's the downside of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Carl Franklin, tell me about what our buddy Mark Raymond wanted to say, because he wrote this down for you, right?
Yes. He says he's traveling today. He's going to miss. And I said, if you want to send me the best bite you ever had, I'll read it for you. And he goes, meal or dessert? I said, anything. Best bite. He says, that's easy. My Nana's chocolate cake. It's like a devil dog, only better. She used to make 3 a week when my dad was young. Always had one when the grandkids were around. My mom and sister still make it. That would be the best for me. I asked him any idea how she made it, and he says, well, it was from scratch, all-purpose flour with Hershey cocoa powder. You have to sour the milk overnight and use room temperature eggs. And frosting was made with Crisco and sugar and vanilla. Sounds gross, but it was amazing.
Very
That
70s.
sounds so good. Oh,
Yeah.
God, that sounds good. That's what chocolate frosting should be.
Yeah.
That's really what it
Faith,
should be.
You were talking about that Burmese food.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I didn't have the taste for spice that I do now. And it's like exercising or muscle. You build it up. You go slowly and your tolerance builds up, and it actually becomes really, really delicious after a while. So I went to a Thai restaurant I know you're laughing, but I went to a Thai restaurant with my then wife's uncle, and he had a sophisticated spice palate. And so he got this Kangoong, which is a shrimp curry. And he got, 4 or 5 stars. It was 4 stars, but, you could add up to as many as you want. It's just measures of chili pepper, right? And I said, oh, man, that's going to be really hot. And he says, no, I think this is okay. And I, like an idiot, I was like, you don't want it that hot, man. You don't want it that hot. And now the waitress is scared. She's like, okay, I'll tone it down. He's like, no, it's okay. He's trying to be nice. And he's like, this is not at all.
No.
So stupid.
Oh,
Stupid
my God.
me.
Oh, no. See,
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. As I've gotten older, my ability to tolerate super hot, I just can't do it anymore. I don't know if that's happened to any of you.
Carl and I grew up in Mystic, and we call it Mystic Heat. So if there's a restaurant in Mystic and somebody said, oh, I ate there, but it's spicy, we'd be like, Mystic spicy. But
Yeah,
it's
Mystic
not really spicy.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, boy. I was going to say the best bite I ever had was when I dipped my fork into the mashed potatoes. I was in Paris in a restaurant created by the late Joel Robuchon, who was, and still is my food god. And, it was the most astonishing mashed potatoes I've ever had in my entire life, except that, Carl, when you told your story, you made something fly into my head. And it was a dish that I would make before my sister came home from her job. Mm-hmm. And we would go into the supermarket and we would buy these, I call them cheesy, but they were like really cheap, Chris, what are they, like veal patties?
Or veal cutlets already pounded out.
They were coated with something looked like yellow or orange.
Yep.
And I'd defrost them, and then and I'd pour a gallon of oil into a fry pan, and then fry these up on both sides until they got really crispy in the fry pan, and then dump in a jar of spaghetti sauce on top. And then as soon as it all got crispy and just the right, consistency, out they would come and we would eat them. And it was, to this minute, one of the absolute best things I have ever had.
And you made it.
And it's, I don't know how many years it's probably taken off my life. So
I don't know.
it doesn't have to be fancy, right, Carl?
No, it doesn't. And you mentioned Joel Robuchon. I actually have a great story about that. So at the end of one of my many road trips that I did with this tech podcast, .NET Rocks, we ended up, we had some extra money, and my partner, my business partner and podcast partner, Richard Campbell, was like, we're going to Robichaud. It was in Vegas. It was at the MGM Grand, which is where we were at the moment.
I've been there, yeah.
So Kelly, my wife, came with me. She's going to kill me if she hears this. She came with us, and she doesn't like anything with flavor. Okay? She grew up, eating packaged food and, cracker coated fish fried in Crisco, and her mom eats saltine sandwiches with butter, not even butter, like shed spread. So
is she from the Midwest?
Well, her family was originally,
yeah.
But anyway, so she really didn't get exposed to good food until she started hanging out with me in her 40s, right? So we went to this thing, and she didn't like any of it. And she was like, I gotta go. I'm going to go get a cheeseburger. But Joel Robichaud's potatoes are well known for being different from everything else. First of all, it's half mashed potato and half butter.
Mm-hmm.
There's just as much butter as there is potatoes.
Can I just say there's only one other person who does the most killer mashed potatoes ever in the world, and he's on this show. That would be Chris Prosperi.
Wow.
And at Thanksgiving time, you can go to his restaurant, and you can order it to go.
But Carl is right. That's what makes them so good. The key is to see how much butter you can get in the potatoes without them turning to soup. It's a fine line, but you have to bring it right to that line.
And also, Chris, am I right in thinking that you whip them by hand with a wood spoon and whip them, and you go past the state where most people would call gluey?
Yep.
Yeah. So in the culinary world, gluey potatoes happen when you put them in a blender and they just turn to glue. But for some reason, when you add all this butter and you bring it to that state, Robichaud style, they just go to a different place.
Yeah.
Just like the one in the Swanson's Hungry Man Salisbury steak dinner.
Exactly like that one.
You're probably right.
Could be identical.
I know.
I saw something yellow in there.
Well, Chris, on my next carb vacation, I'm going to have to come up and have your mashed potatoes, or at least a bite.
Oh, yeah. So good.
Yeah. Chris, you could just add a little extra butter.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come too, and you're going to have to add extra butter.
Yeah, I'll take one for the team.
I mean, if you can even squeeze in extra butter. I don't even know if you can. Oh, boy, that was fun. Okay, anybody want to squeak an extra one in before we take off?
Well, I'm going to ask Chris. I mean, Chris, you're the bona fide chef among us. Of the dishes that you make, maybe for your restaurant or for at home, do you have a favorite?
You know what? I've got a great one. And it's so simple and it's so delicious, and it just ended for me. And it's really super, super simple. You just go out to your garden if you do a garden, and you should do one if you don't, and fresh tomatoes with just a little Maldon sea salt. It's that special sea salt that's really flaky.
Right.
And that's it. You don't have to do anything else. I just take a slice, put this salt on it, and pop it in my mouth. And I'm telling you, when tomatoes are fresh, it is by far my, I every summer from June to all the way through September, I have one every day. As soon as I come in, I walk over to we have some raised beds at the restaurant, and I hunt through the bush of tomato bushes, and I find the most perfect tomato every day, and I bring it in. It's still warm, and I just take a slice out of it, sprinkle this salt on it, and pop it. It's just like the perfect way to start a day. And like I said, sometimes it can be so simple, right? It doesn't have to be fancy or anything. It's just tomato with a little salt.
Now you're making me remember when I would take Pepperidge Farm white bread and toast it, and then cover it with tons of butter, and then fresh, still warm sliced tomato, and eat a tomato
nice
sandwich.
And thick,
yes, Carl, nice and thick. Tomato sandwich.
Put onion and mayonnaise on that, and I'm with you.
Yeah.
Really? I've never had that.
I grew up with that onion sandwich, onion and tomato sandwich on the white bread.
I would like to declare that everyone has to make all these things when I come to your various houses, because you make
Easy
me
enough.
hungry every single time. All right, let me say who we're with. We're with Joanne Church, who lives in New London, Connecticut, right near Carl Franklin, who lives in Quaker Hill, Connecticut. Chris Prosperi, chef and co-owner of Metro Beast Restaurant in Simsbury, Connecticut. I'm Faith Middleton in Guilford with our dog, our show mascot, my dog, Bon Bon. And we will see you next time. We love being back on the air with you. So be sure and look for the all-new Faith Middleton Food Schmooze podcast.